Hey folks, everything new under the sun. What we've experienced, or at least seen over the last couple of days, is to me and to all of us in some ways more important than any of the external factors, things happening on the other side of the ocean, things happening in Europe, across the world, etc. And it's the degradation of society, the thin veneer or veil of civilization. Things break down very, very quickly. Matthew 24, speaking of the last days, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And many shall be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, because sin abounds, the love of many shall wax cold. People will just give up their humanity. They will give up everything. They will be so desperate. And I want to bring to you this story. Oops, sorry about that. I hit my microphone. But this is from the economiccollapseblog.com. Why do so many bad things keep happening to us is the question. And there's a whole bunch of looting going on in Buffalo, and that's kind of what I want to speak to and give you an example from the past as to when that's occurred before. And this is really what we can expect in the future to be in a town near you. 2022 has been a year of war, plagues, natural disasters, shortages, severe economic troubles, but until this month, we had not been able to add an apocalyptic winter storm to the list. It says a monster storm that covered almost the entire country of the U.S. at one point brought blizzard conditions to much of the U.S. over the past several days. Temperatures dipped down to minus 50. And of course, many of my viewers, you folks listening, have experienced this. A lot of you are in the U.S. And watching this video. And so you know exactly what has occurred in your location. And it goes on and talks about the stranded police, the crews that can't get through the roads, Buffalo, worst snowfall since 1977, and worse than that potentially. Buffalo has already received 4 feet of snow, and snow is going to continue to fall until the middle of the day Tuesday. That's today. Well, okay, snowstorms, that's not a big deal, but what do people do when these snowstorms happen? Many others are without power and slowly freezing as they find themselves trapped inside their homes by colossal mountains of snow. There's people potentially freezing to death, especially older folks who can't get out their door, who don't have a way to heat if the power's out, etc., with all these substations being burglarized, as they state. So here's the crux of it. Videos posted online show brazen thieves taking advantage of the chaos, the snowpocalypse, whatever you want to call it, the snowstorm, the blizzard, trudging over mounds of snow to get into abandoned storefronts like Dollar General, where shelves were overturned and items were scattered on the ground. Others were filmed hauling televisions out of stores, and security footage caught one man breaking the glass of a liquor store who allegedly stole $500 worth of goods. And just as is common these days, someone even Facebook live streamed themselves going into a store and grabbing stuff. And you know what? There's precedence for this sort of thing. The collapse of civilization. This is a CBC article, cbc.ca. Civilization is a very thin veneer. What the plague of Athens can teach us about dealing with COVID-19, and that's what this was about. And in Athens, there was a pandemic going around, a plague going around in 430 BC. And it killed upwards of half of the Greek city's population, so Athens. What I want to go down to, so that's history, that's well-known history. What I want to go down to is here, this idea of the veneer of civilization. Very quickly, if there's any elongated emergency or catastrophe where people are without gas or food, water, whatever it may be, for more than, say, 48 hours, people start getting desperate. Note that this happened to me during Fiona on the East Coast. The first day was all fun and games. Everybody was enjoying it. Everybody had their generators run. They had their fuel. The second day, There was some big lineups for gasoline, jerry cans, 100 people in a line, jerry can in each arm. Interact machines were down. You had to pay cash. If you didn't have it, people were getting upset. People were getting impatient. They needed their gas, and gas was running out. Most gas stations where we are don't have backup generators. That's apparently a thing where gas stations just never thought they needed backup generators, I guess because the power has been so good. You go on to day 3, day 4 without power, then people are starting to get frustrated. You can see it on Facebook posts when people are in this situation. And as people get desperate, they lose the love of their fellow citizen. When they're desperate, they'll do anything for food, especially if you have kids, elders who are starving cold in your house. You might decide to go steal some gasoline or steal some food if no one's getting you what you need. People will get desperate. They will do what they need to do to survive. And that's what's going to happen. This is what's happening in Buffalo right now. Maybe it's not needed to survive, but people are taking advantage of the situation. Civilization is a very thin veneer. Overwhelmed by disaster, people could not see what was to become of them and started losing respect for laws of God and man alike. The love of many will grow cold. They will not respect any law anymore. They will become lawless. The whole society will. Civilization, the idea of being civil amongst others, will not be a thing anymore. People will be doing what they think they need to do at that point. And so this is where it becomes effectively a Mad Max situation. Catherine Kalaitis, a resident scholar of National Hellenic Museum in Chicago, said, "The Greeks very much had this sense. The civilization is a very thin veneer, and that under even slight amounts of pressure, the social contract starts to break down. When people lose that veneer, that can be very dangerous. The social contract breaks down under even slight amounts of pressure. It doesn't take much. If something is going on, pressure on people for more than, I would say, 48 hours, this civilness that people have will break down. The civilization, the veneer of that disappears rather quickly as people start to really settle in and start panicking, start getting desperate, start getting hungry. They're going to do what they think they need to do, and people will resort to violence, breaking the law. And, in a grid down situation, it's almost as if the law doesn't exist anymore. People will do, again, whatever they need to do at that point in time. What happened during the pandemic? The law ceased to exist anymore, didn't it? Your charter rights and freedoms, that ceased to exist during the pandemic, didn't it? And they put other laws in effect, which actually turned out to be unconstitutional and, in effect, illegal in some manner. And so, even the governments will become lawless when there is an emergency. And that's exactly what we saw with the pandemic. That's what we see happening in Buffalo. And when the next crisis happens, what are people going to do? People are going to be absolutely desperate. And this gets worse and worse, folks. It comes close to a town near you. You need to have food, water. You probably need enough to share with your neighbors because they're not getting prepared. They're not paying attention to what's happening in the world. And you may need, rightly so, a way to either defend that food and water that you have, or some sort of bug-out bag to get out of there if someone does come knocking on your door and will not take no for an answer, or even yes to maybe some food, some water. You need to be prepared for that. And that's what the Bible says in the last days is coming. The love of many will grow cold, will wax cold, and there will be violence in the land in those days. I'll leave it there, guys. It's a sobering thought. We are in the last days, and things are not getting better.